Data indicates that autoimmune diseases affect approximately 50 million Americans. However, given the complexity of diagnosing these conditions, this number is likely to be an underestimate. Even more alarming, autoimmunity is reaching epidemic levels, with some studies estimating an increase of 3 to 12% annually. Let that settle in for a minute. Let's look at some statistics. Among test subjects, the prevalence of anti-nuclear antibodies, otherwise known as ANA, the most common biomarker of autoimmunity, nearly doubled between 1988 and 2012. What happened in 1988, it's not rocket science, is it? You know, the mobile phone was really starting to gain traction around, well, it was, you know, you could get one from 1986 really, couldn't you? But it started to grow and grow, and by 2012 autoimmunity had doubled, or nearly doubled. In the same study, the prevalence of ANA among adolescents aged 12 to 19 also increased, but by nearly 300%, so 3 times. But we know that wirelessness is more detrimental to children as they grow, because they're growing and the schools are weaker, etc., etc., than for adults. It's starting to form a picture. The prevalence of type 1 diabetes has nearly doubled in the past 40 years in the adult population. 1984? Phones began to be introduced again. Well, mid-80s really, wasn't it, when they first sort of came into the market. Over the past 30 years, the prevalence of celiac disease in the US has increased 5-fold, doubling approximately every 15 years. The estimated number of people with multiple sclerosis worldwide has increased 30% from 2013 to 2022. I'd like to see how it increased from the mid-80s to 2013. Well, I haven't got any data in that at the moment. Between 2006 and 2021, the prevalence of inflammatory bowel disease, looking out for that word again, inflammatory bowel disease, increased 46%. Again, I'd like to see what it had done between the mid-1980s and 2006. Again, I haven't got any data at the moment for that. Now let's look at some common autoimmune diseases. So multiple sclerosis we've talked about, type 1 diabetes also, psoriasis, rheumatoid arthritis and lupus, terrible diseases, all of them, and all known as autoimmune diseases. But as many of you know, I've been in the business of helping people reduce or remove their exposure to EMFs for over 20 years. And we have, I think, about 17,000 clients on our database. The majority of people I still speak to on a regular basis who would class themselves, say, as electrosensitive, exhibit symptoms of ME or chronic, well, CFS, same thing. Chronic fatigue syndrome, effectively. So let's look at this. Autoimmune diseases are conditions where the immune system starts to produce harmful antibodies that can attack the body's own tissues, such as muscle and the thyroid gland. Instead of producing protective antibodies to help fight off infections and reduce allergic responses, these harmful antibodies are called autoantibodies. So up to this point, I guess I'm teaching Granny to suck eggs, because most of us know that a major factor in the world's ill health is inflammation. And I'm actually going to refer to the World Health Organization, much to my astonishment, because even they can see that there's a connection between inflammatory conditions or inflammation and mobile or wireless signals. So let's read something from them. The World Health Organization, International Agency for the Research on Cancer's classification of wireless radio frequencies, a Class 2B carcinogen, includes wireless radiation from any transmitting source, such as cell phones, baby monitors, tablets, cell towers, radar, other Wi-Fi, etc. The radio frequency classification applies to RF EMF in the range of 30 kHz to 300 GHz emitted from any device. Cell phone frequencies commonly start at 900 MHz, with some cell phones having up to 7 antennas, it's more than that now, all at different frequencies, and Wi-Fi device frequencies are at 2.45 GHz and 5 GHz. A study entitled Radio Frequency at 2.45 GHz increases toxicity, pro-inflammatory and pre-apoptotic activity caused by black carbon in the raw 264.7 macrophage cell line. Published in Science of the Total Environment found a subthermal exposure of 2.45 GHz, the frequency used in Wi-Fi, combined with fine coarse black carbon, prolonged innate and inflammatory immune responses. Radio frequency RF dramatically increased BC-induced toxicity at high doses in the first 24 hours, and toxicity levels remained high 72 hours later for all doses. The paper concludes our results indicate that an interaction of BC and RF modifies macrophage immune response activities, apoptosis, and accelerates cell toxicity, by which it can activate the induction of hypersensitivity reactions and autoimmune disorders. So there we have it. You know, the layman's translation of that is that wireless devices cause an inflammatory reaction in humans, and even cause an autoimmune reaction in humans. So therefore it's not a surprise if we go back to the beginning of this video and look at the acceleration in diseases that are linked with these two factors. But why is nobody talking about it? So, you know, I always say this, you know, when people ask me to come out and do surveys and things, you know, I'm only going to come if you're looking to find a solution, not just a report. Because, you know, that so far we've just got a report. Now all that does to us is leave us more stressed than we were before we watched the video. So what can we do about it? Let's look at some things you can do. First of all, switch all the power off at night. Sounds wild, I know, but you'll be amazed at the difference that makes. Don't charge your mobile phone next to the bed. Don't charge it anywhere with a signal on it. You know, just put it on airplane or switch it off. Fit dirty electricity filters. Earth yourself as much as possible. Wear radio frequency reflective clothing. And the biggest by far is get yourself in a sleep solution at night, a bed canopy and underbed mat, a Faraday cage effectively. Remember, the key to this in many ways is that the brain, or rather the pineal gland, sees radio frequency as a form of bright light, so you don't get melatonin production, so you don't get full restorative sleep. You don't get immune system refreshment, and we're talking about immunity, aren't we? You don't get brain detox, and so therefore you go headlong diving into all these illnesses. If you get a bed canopy and a mat and earth it, you get the sleep you need to restore you through the day. It's not just about night. So those are some of the things you can do to avoid becoming one of the statistics that we've just talked about now.